Precious sausages.
Yes, hello everybody. Let's take a look inside the fridge, getting the ingredients that we need. So welcome everybody to Cooking with Pin. Tonight I'm going to be making Ponsonby's pasta, which is technically pasta alla Norcina. And I'm putting a bit of a twist on it because it's my own little thing. So if we take a look at some of the ingredients that you're going to need for this dish. So starting with the meat itself, we have 6 Lincolnshire sausages, beautiful pork sausages. Then we're going to be using 1 half of pancetta. Normally with this dish you would be finding guanciale, but as we are in the UK, it's much easier to find pancetta in your regular supermarket. And then of course we have mushrooms, which are optional, and one ingredient that I have also forgotten, which is kind of the twist. If we take a look in the freezer, I have chopped up quite a lot of shallots. Now, if you don't like shallots, then again, these are optional. You can use just regular white onions if you prefer. They were freshly chopped probably 2 days ago, so still very, very nice, very fresh. Take this. So there we have our shallots. Mushrooms, again, like I say, but you don't need to go too heavy on these, seeing as you're bringing both of these kinds of meats. The saucepan is going to get very busy very quickly. As far as additional seasoning goes for our sauce as well, we have standard black pepper, we have a standard table salt. Not going to need too much of that because as far as salt content is concerned, you're going to get a lot of that from the pancetta, but also from the pecorino. There's quite a salty cheese. We're going to have a little sprinkle of parsley, a little sprinkle of thyme. That is optional too, not usually used, but I kind of enjoy it. It kind of balances out the creaminess of the mascarpone. And then we have some Pinot Grigio white wine to soak our ingredients in when they're cooked, which will be used with the truffle oil. Again, this dish does call for truffle, which is yet another ingredient very similar to guanciale in being difficult to get in the UK, at least not for an affordable price. As for the pasta, I am using rigatoni because that's just my preference. You can use whatever you want, really. There's no kind of right or wrong answer. You kind of want a pasta that can soak up the sauce and is delicious. And as you can see, 10 to 12 minutes to the boil, and you know, nice and al dente. So we're going to start by putting our pasta in. I have a tendency to cook in large batches because that's just my preference. The amount used here is 500 grams, so you'll be looking at, if you're doing sort of small to medium sized dishes, you can get about 4 servings worth in there. But if you're doing for one person, 2 big meals is usually my go-to because I tend to have 1 meal a day, but again, just my preference. So I do have a little bit of sea salt, which we are going to add a little bit of to the pasta. Not too much, because again, we do have a lot of salt content going in with the meat and the cheese. And now comes the delightful job of skinning the sausage meat, because we're going to need to take it out of the skins and basically squash it down. Pop these open. Good thing about these packs are that the sausages themselves aren't conjoined, and then it's just a case of cutting lightly down the middle, and then you should be able to find where the skin is at. But I mean, it looks disgusting, yes, but it is worth it in the long run. So with the sausage meat secured, you then want to get yourself kind of the runt of the forks that you have to use it to squash it down, because again, we don't want sausage shapes, we want nice evenly smushed sausage meat. So basically think of it as sausage mince, you know. So yeah, once it no longer resembles actual sausage and it's just one clump of meat, you can give it a wee bit of seasoning, just a little touch of the black pepper. Salt is optional, I prefer not to, but with the meat near enough out of the way, because we're going to cut this in half. You can use both of these if you really want to, but I prefer just to use one, given that we already have both sausage meat and pancetta anyway. So with our meat put to the side, we're then going to turn our attention to chopping up these mushrooms. You don't want to go too many. I'm probably going to go for just a dozen here. Actually, no, let's go for half a dozen. 6 is plenty. And I am somebody that likes to use the stalks. I never understand why you would get rid of them, but just make sure that your mushrooms are washed and that you don't see any bits of soil on them. I mean, mine are nice and clear, so it should be just a simple process of giving them the old chop. I mean, I tell you, Ponsonby is going to be very happy when he gets this in the trenches. Do you like the really weak tie-in to making a cooking video? You got to make that link with hogs somehow, right? Again, I'm not so used to these kinds of videos, but cooking has always been something that I've improved on as time has gone on, and it's become such an integral part of my day-to-day that, I don't know, just seemed like kind of a nice idea to share with you guys, especially during this time of year, you know. Pasta is something that I am constantly eating. It's a hearty meal, plenty of carbs, and when you're combining it with 2 different kinds of meat, and I mean, we're using wine. Like I'm not so much of a wine drinker, let's be honest, or just a drinker in general. Only really when I'm with other people that I decide to drink. And I mean, when you look at the wine itself, like, could it be any more basic? Probably. But again, as I'm not a wine drinker, it is perfect for cooking. And you basically want to combine whatever wine you're using with the kinds of ingredients. So if it's a white sauce dish, then white wine is going to be your preference. But if it's a red sauce dish, then that's when red wine comes in. So once more, just another little saison. I'm going to add sprinkle of thyme to these mushrooms, just a smidge. So we have just set the kettle to boil, so apologies if the noise is substantial, but coming back over here, this is now where we're going to prepare the start of our sauce, where we're going to take the mascarpone and mix it in with our pecorino. We're going to leave it in this bowl until we need it, and that is also where you're going to need a mug, any kind of drinking mug, which you can then use to get some pasta water later on, and that pasta water is going to be used to be mixed in with the sauce to make it a bit more runny, and we're going to be using it throughout this dish to bring the sauce together and combine everything again once the kettle has shut the hell up. So hopefully this is a pretty good camera angle, so you can see exactly what I've got going on, and I can be a bit more hands-free. So let's start by adding some beautiful truffle oil. If I could open the goddamn thing. So I'm going to be somewhat generous with this, because seeing as again we don't have actual truffle to use, we want to kind of infuse the ingredients that we're using with this oil as much as we can. Again, just be generous. I like to season my oil, just my preference, usually black pepper as per usual. We'll start with our shallots. Again, you don't need too many. That was maybe too much, but just considering that we are using mushrooms as well, you don't need to go too crazy with them choppers. But I'm already sensing the correct aromas. We have indeed boiled the kettle already, so that's kind of ready to go. But we are going to need a touch more heat. Because these, of course, have been frozen, we just need to get the water out of them. So just keep this on the move. Try and dissipate that moisture. And ensure that all of the vegetable is broken apart correctly. I also need to hope that my camera doesn't steam up in the process. If it gets steamy, then I do apologize. But as soon as you start to notice that things are browning, that's when you can chuck in les mushrooms. So dump those bad boys in there. They can soak up some of that moisture. and I tend to set my pasta to boil once the meat goes in, because then you've basically got 10 minutes to cook all of your meat and keep Major Grimley happy. It's combining that moisture quite nicely, but we're of course going to want to keep these cooking over a little bit before we add in the pancetta and the sausage meat. So you can see already that just all of that moisture has been soaked up by these mushrooms, which is what we want, combining those flavors so they can make the love together, you know. And it's just as the mushrooms are starting to sweat that we can add in the extra flavor. Pancetta goes in. Again, we're going to be maintaining the seasoning with the black pepper because you already have so much salt in the pancetta itself. And again, don't be afraid if you see that things are maybe going a bit dry, like feel free to add in some water if you need it. So again, you know, pancetta is mixing in well. That is of course going to give off its own oil, which will then just add to these flavors. I've got to pump up the volume on the ventilation though, as these are cooking quickly. I guess we can technically turn down the heat by 1. I should mention you want to keep these on a high heat until you add the meat in. So we are indeed going to do that now. In goes the sausage meat, which you kind of want to, you're going to have to spend a little bit of time breaking it apart, which can be a bit bothersome. But it's worth it in the long run. Just use that same fork that you used to squish it to then break it all apart in the pan itself. And then the sooner you do that, the easier it will become. Now at this point, you can add a splash of water just to make sure that things are still hydrated. And at the same time, add it to your pasta once you have disassembled the sausage meat. So you want to just sort of smush and pull apart. And then once you've got it into much finer pieces of meat, that's when you can then start to combine, and the heat and the flavors will help to break apart. So as we combine, that's when we kind of get this more sausage mince kind of look. So I'm kind of happy to put our pasta on to boil now. I'm going to chuck in our hot water, and again, just make sure that you've got your mug on standby for that pasta water once some of the starch is released from the pasta itself. So again, just continuing to break things apart. I think we could maybe do with a bit more heat actually. We turned it down, but then you have all this meat juice. It's the only way I can describe it. You need a slight charring on it, because the last thing you want is your sausage and pancetta to remain mushy. You at least want there to be, you know, you want it to be cooked. And this will just give us enough time to continue cooking all this. Don't forget, we've then got our white wine to add, which will then evaporate the alcohol and provide us with the basis for the rest of our sauce. Slowly it's coming together, so we just need to make sure that we're continuing to break down any big chunks of sausage that are in need of heat. So I'm just going to give this a quick toss just to make sure that the oil is distributed evenly. And you'll notice just all of the oil that is congealing underneath. Again, that is kind of like the stage 1 of kind of preparing for our sauce. Because you're going to want about a half glass of wine. I mean, I just tend to eyeball it because I feel that's a much more fun way of cooking. Like, exact quantities, you can be precise if you wanna, but if you've made the dish enough, you can usually tell by eye how much is needed. You can see that we've got a bit more browning going on in the middle, so I'm quite happy now to add in our white wine, which is where you'll actually be able to hear me because it'll quieten down a bit. Opening up the fresh bottle, and you just want to dump it in, and this will then give us time to make the rest of our sauce. So you basically just need to mix and allow the heat to do the job in order for the alcohol to be evaporated. In fact, we could probably do with a touch more, just a little dash. And now is the time for additional seasoning. In fact, I'm just gonna do it the old-fashioned way, maybe a tad bit much. Potion seller, I'm going into battle, and I require your finest Ponsonby's pasta. My pasta is too strong for you, traveller. So yeah, a little bit of greens, not much though, just a smidge. And now is also the time where we can add in a little sprinkle of salt, not much, just enough to cover, and then we can get to work on the actual main bit of our sauce. So it is very simple. In that you just take a spoon, you dump the entirety of the mascarpone into a bowl, and with our mascarpone in, we can again, I guess, add a bit of seasoning, so a little sprinkle of black pepper, and then we can chuck in our wonderful pecorino. Just be very generous. And you want to give that a good old mix, just ensuring that you have kind of equal parts between the mascarpone and the pecorino romano. Again, don't forget about mixing. I mean, you can see here the alcohol has already been evaporated, and you're left with this sort of almost jelly-like kind of roux, and that is perfect for what we need, because that is going to form the base of our sauce. So pasta is coming along nicely. You can leave that be. Maybe get a little spoonful ready. Just a smidge, just for our sauce here. It's very, very thick. So you can see it here. You kind of want the consistency of scrambled egg, but with the thickness of this sauce, it's kind of less so. So we're going to add a touch of pasta water to kind of break apart the toughness of the mascarpone. Just give it a very quick mix. I would probably be better with a bigger spoon, but you know. At this point, you want to be turning down the heat. So probably have it at about half, because when we add the sauce in, it's going to, of course, heat it up very quickly. With the sauce mixed in, we can effectively just dump this in as... Oh, there's the timer for the pasta, so pasta is already ready. Perfect timing, I suppose, because it gives us just enough time to melt this bad boy. So we can grab ourselves some more pasta water. It's alright if you pick up some stragglers along the way. And turn off the heat. You can see how messy of a cook I am. But now we just want to break apart this sauce, mix it together, keep the pasta water coming, because that again is going to be the main way that you break all this apart, and mix it together with the meat. You can slowly start to see the sauce forming, but you just again need to keep that water coming in. In fact, we can be quite generous here and just pick it up, pour it in, pour it all over the place, you know, and top up our sauce as we have been, because there are still big chunks of mascarpone that need combining. Little by little, we have the base for our pasta alla norcina. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly, but it's Ponsonby's pasta, yo. Now, if you find that you have added too much water, then you want to keep the cheese on standby, because that will allow you to combine it it'll allow you to thicken it up. So if it's too wet, add more cheese. If it's not wet enough, add more water. So in goes our pasta. Maybe a splash more for the hell of it. And at this point, we've turned the heat off completely. We do not need any more heat, because the heat from the pasta and the heat from the sauce combine into what we have here. So there will be some casualties, because my saucepan is not big enough. As we slowly combine, you want to start to toss as well. It's been kind of a big help to me, actually, learning how to toss. You can see that we could do with maybe a touch more pasta water. We are maybe a little bit too thick. Again, just another little toss. See all of that beautiful meat combining. And our pasta is completely coated. So there we have it. That is our Ponsonby's pasta. I'll just quickly serve it up. Maybe somewhat generous, but you can just continue to mix even off the heat. Again, don't be afraid to add more cheese if you need it, but for me, I'm going to have some lovely generous helpings. And of course, the rest of this is going to be put into containers for a meal at a later date. The beautiful meat on there, very nice. Keep it coming, yes, yes. That seems good to me. Maybe a touch more, you know. I haven't actually eaten anything today, so voila. So there we have it. Ponsonby's pasta, but quickly we can add just an extra sprinkling of the wonderful pecorino on top. Because who doesn't like a little bit of extra cheese, eh? Cool. The recipe for this dish will be in the description below, so you can check it out for yourself. And if you need any more help as far as preparation and organization goes, then let me know in the comments as well. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace! Fucking food time, yeah!
This destination going.
Slam. When I hit you up, I'm talking about bangers. Chill off in your crib and have a thing, probably make us bang or something. Girl, you like my bottom bitch. Post my bill, pay for my lawyer. Play your position when the mother hoes get out of order. When you wanna give me that pussy, you purchase a plane ticket. Run around town when I bust the down in my shit.